That's these are principles. These are
Yes.
principles to live by. Jesus came here, and I think he was all, besides telling us about life everlasting, he was really telling us about how the kingdom of heaven is spread out upon the earth. And man does not see it. He was teaching us how to have heaven on earth here as well in the meantime, or have to live that way. And, it's pretty simple, but it's pretty great.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Built Different podcast. My name is Zach Clinton. I'll be your host, and as we continue to grow, I'll have friends joining me each week to interview some of the leading experts in the fields of motivational speaking, mental health, ministry, and even sports. Our goal is to instill hope, encouragement, and motivation in and through your life today. And our prayer is that after each episode, you'd be more equipped and encouraged to look, love, and live more like Christ from the inside out. That's our definition of what it means to be built different. So I hope you're ready. You better buckle up. Let's roll. Dennis Quaid, thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
Dennis, brand new movie titled Reagan, a film that follows Ronald Reagan's life from his childhood to his years as President of the United States, based on the book titled The Crusader. Ronald Reagan and the Fall of Communism will be releasing in theaters nationwide this Friday, August 30th. As we begin, Dennis, a lot of excitement, a lot of build-up for this film. You star as the lead actor portraying Ronald Reagan himself. Just up front, what's it like as an actor getting ready for the big release of a film that you've poured countless hours, months, and probably years into?
Wow. Big question, but yeah, it's like butterflies going on here. I mean, the good news is the reaction to the film has been so overwhelmingly good, across the board. Reagan was a people person, and people respond to Ronald Reagan. And when he was president, at least for my generation, the baby boomers, he was everybody's dad, and that was for better or worse. Whether you admire your dad or whether you rebelled against your dad, he still loomed very large in your life. And I think there's really a lot of gravity with that.
Absolutely. It's an incredible and inspiring movie. I had early access to watch it before our interview here tonight. Very well done. It's heartwarming. It's unifying. Dennis, what did this particular role, though, mean to you personally? And like you said, having the opportunity to play such a significant role of one of the most deeply loved presidents and one of the most charismatic leaders our country's ever seen.
He was my favorite president. And so when I was offered the role, I actually had, I'd call it a bolt of fear go down my spine. Which is usually a sign that I should do that because it gets me out of my comfort zone, And he was like Muhammad Ali. It was everyone around the world recognizes Ronald Reagan from a photograph. They know how he sounds like, walked like, his gestures, everything. And it took me some time because I wanted to not do an impersonation, and I wanted to get to the person behind the public persona. I took a trip up to the Reagan Ranch. I was invited up there, and it's not open to the public. When Reagan died, a group of friends bought it, and they left it exactly as it was. I mean, Ron's and Nancy's clothes are in the closet. You expect them to come back any second. And the only person up there was John Barletta, who I met, who was Ronald Reagan's Secret Service guy who rode with him on a horse. Had a relationship with him for well over 30 years. And but coming into that place is where I instantly could feel his spirit and feel him as a person there in what they call the Western White House. For one thing, it was obvious that Reagan was not a rich man, very humble man. You could feel him in all the work that he did around there. He dug that pond. The house was 1,100 square feet. That's not a very big apartment, actually. And they did have a king size bed, he and Nancy, but it was two single beds that were zip tied together. And they had there was a little basket there on the sofa, with 3 remote controls Because
Mm.
back in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, you had to like use 3 remote controls just to get something going with cable. That was
Right.
new, you know. And one of them goes kaprong, kaprong, and a little note from Nancy on how to use it. But
Wow.
that was the thing that got me to say yes. But
Mm.
the best thing about that place was the bookcase, which was just kind of a
Mm.
mini library. When you open the front door, there's every book that Ronald Reagan ever had, going back to when he was 9 years old.
Yeah.
The Prince of Udell is there, every book he ever had, and you can feel him in that place. And I said yes.
What I appreciate about you, Dennis, is just hearing the work ethic that you put into these roles, right? It's not just going through the motions to you, it's learning the person to make sure that you are depicting their level of character, their level of integrity. And Ronald Reagan was exactly that. I came across an article that stated that Ronald Reagan, from 1981 to 89, Reagan led a great American comeback. Not only achieved what his critics said would be impossible, but he made it seem easy. He revived America's spirit, restored our hopes, and strengthened our faith. And it went on to say that his leadership was prioritized around 4 principles. He united America, he inspired America, he emboldened America, and he protected America. Dennis, as an actor, and knowing that you're trying to really depict the persona of an individual, what did you not just learn about Reagan, but how did what you learned impact you and your personal life today?
Well, Reagan, Reagan was a Democrat before he was a Republican.
Yeah.
Pretty much even during the time of his life. But he lived his life, and that's the way he governed. He governed by principles. Those
Mm.
first things that you said about how he led America. And, some of those decisions that he made during that time were unpopular, maybe, to a great number of people. And, but if you govern by those principles, they, in the end, will prove themselves out.
That's exactly right. One of my favorite Ronald Reagan quotes says, "There are no easy answers, but there are simple ones. We must have the courage to do what we know is morally right." My grandmother would put it this way, Dennis: the right thing may not always feel like the right thing, but it will always be the right thing to do. Dennis, I got to ask, how long did it take you to nail down his accent? Because you did a fabulous job, not just in his younger years, but throughout different stages of his life as well.
Yeah, everybody remembers the older years, but I guess when he was president, everybody talks slower when they get older. But that was one of the challenges, of going back, because there's so much footage of him too, from
Right.
his Hollywood movies, from the time that he testified in Congress, and it's getting that rhythm of speech and everything. I basically had a year to prepare, and so I just lived with it, and my poor family, who have finally forgiven me for talking, talking like Ronald Reagan for days on end, just so I could learn it and just not have to think about it, and just do what was in front of me.
I tell you what, again, it speaks to your level of preparation and your work ethic. Dennis, this movie isn't your first rodeo as a lead role centered around inspiring and unifying us as a people. Appearing in over 46 features, your films have earned over $1.8 billion at the box office. You're one of the
Wow.
most renowned.
Wow.
Yeah, hear that? Come on. You're one of the most
Wow.
renowned actors of the
Yeah,
last
no
several
wonder those
decades.
residual checks are so good lately.
One of the greatest actors of the last several decades. I grew up watching your movies, from The Parent Trap to Yours, Mine, and Ours, The Day After Tomorrow. The Rookie is one of my personal favorites. The Intruder, you played the villain. Come on, countless classics. Now the brand new Reagan film. Dennis, do a film or two stick out to you that you just, you go back to and say, those are pivotal moments in my life?
Well, Reagan has become my favorite movie now that I've ever done. It knocked off a 40-year reign by The Right Stuff, which is another, like, living out my boyhood dream. And I became a pilot and doing that movie, in fact. But others would be like The Rookie, Breaking Away. Definitely The Parent Trap. Parent Trap gave me another
Yes.
career with another generation, and continues to, with other generations, it goes, and very grateful for that. And many, many more. I've been very lucky in my career, and in fact, that's the name of my autobiography, My Lucky Life, because I've never worked a day.
I love that. You've never worked a day. You live such a lucky life, right? We're so undeserving of the opportunities that God puts before us, but then stewarding those opportunities to the very best of our ability. Another one of my favorites, in mentioning that you're a Hollywood mainstream leading man, but you also have a love for independent films. And one of my favorites was Soul Surfer. How far back does your interest in independent films go? And more specifically, when did you feel the personal calling on your heart and career to do a faith-based film such as Soul Surfer that demonstrates or allows you to play out your own Christian faith?
Well, I've always had a deep interest in independent film. That it's kind of off the mainstream. It sort of breaks the rules. It's
Yeah.
in a way, and there are always the little movies that could, underdogs. But Soul Surfer, I really love that film. That was faith films. I think had been around what they call faith films for about 7 or 8 years at that time, and they weren't done very well, to tell you the truth.
Right.
But they were done earnestly. And
Mm.
along came a movie, The Shack. That's the
Yep.
first film that I remember as being, hey, this is an incredible story.
Right.
And when Soul Surfer came along, the way I make my decision about doing a movie is I wasn't looking for a faith film, but this happened to um, come my way, and it was the story that
Mm.
hit me. And this is a story also of faith,
Yes.
very, very important to it. In fact, my memory is that when we got to rehearsing on the set to do that movie, the studio wanted to take out a lot of references to the faith
Mm.
faith in there.
Yeah.
And there's the family right there. And I said, if you're going to do that, then I'm not doing the movie, because
Wow.
it's so much a part of them. This is their story. It's so much a part of their story
Mm.
that you'll be taking away their story. And
Mm.
and it's a beautiful story. And so that, and then I Can Only Imagine, which was, another well done. The Irwin brothers, those guys really have a lot to say, and you will
Yeah.
continue to hear from them. They were also the Jesus Revolution that,
Yep.
that came along there. And so, that's, I think Hollywood itself is starting to wake up. It took
Yes.
them a long time to figure it out. But, I'd rather not label them.
Yeah.
I'd rather label them as really great stories that, address our spirit,
Exactly. Exactly.
our,
And I appreciate that.
complete as human beings.
Right. And it's encouraging to hear, like you said, that Hollywood is starting to wake up to those films, to these stories, because you have depicted so many films of resilience, right? Stories of resilience, great stories that show God's grace to us as a human population. And you're also not a stranger to pain in your own journey. You've been very open about with addiction back in the 80s, and about how God, in a sense, gave you this white moment where you really were just being able to recognize, kind of forecasting what your future looked like, right? You said, I've heard you say, either dead or in jail or in prison, and then making a turn and making a shift in your life. And so I'd love to hear, what role does faith play in terms of an anchor in your life, and how has it helped you weather a lot of different storms?
Well, it's the rock, it's the rock of my life. It's, it's a thing that you can turn to. Everybody, I mean, people say, "Oh my God," all the time. Everybody's always calling out to God, whether they know it or not. Even
Right.
the atheists of the world, they give themselves away. It's these are principles. These are
Yes.
principles to live by. Jesus came here, and I think he was all, besides telling us about life everlasting, he was really telling us about how the kingdom of heaven is spread out upon the earth, and man does not see it. He was teaching us how to have heaven on earth here as well in the meantime, or have to live that way. And it's pretty simple, but it's pretty great.
It's pretty simple, but it's pretty great, right? That God loved us so much that he sent his one and only son to die that substitutionary death in our place. And it's fascinating what God does. But that takes me into this idea of identity, Dennis, because you serving in the acting space, that's a difficult thing to do. You're constantly performing and constantly portraying someone in a sense that you're not. And so I would love to hear, how do you find your identity, not in what you do, but in who you are in a sense because of whose you are?
Well, even with all the roles I play, I could never get away from myself. It's always,
Yes.
like a bit of a comment on humanity. Yeah, it's, and so I'm very interested in what makes people tick, and in that, I learn a lot about myself.
Yeah, you really do. Dennis, as we kind of are coming to a close here, I know we live in kind of divided times. It's a difficult time in our country. It's a difficult time in our world. There's political unrest and more. But I think back to the Reagan film, and it really is, in a sense, this unifying spirit, one nation under God. Dennis, for you, why do you think this film is such a pertinent one for us moving forward when we find ourselves in such divided times?
Well, we have to learn how to communicate with one another again, and I think we've forgotten how. And I feel everybody kind of on both sides trying to figure that out, about how to reach out again with one another. And this film is good for that, in the sense, back then you had liberal Republicans, you had conservative Democrats, and it wasn't so black and white. And the truth of the matter is that Republicans and Democrats need one another.
Yes.
They keep each other from going too far this way or that. And we need to have that discussion and blending back and forth, and in order to come to the wise decision. That's who we are. And I really have faith. I think we will get back there.
I do too, Dennis, and I'm grateful to hear, even after portraying this film, that you have that faith and that this is something that we can keep building off of. My final question for you, my friend, one of the first quotes and one of my favorite quotes in the film says this: history is never about when, where, why, or how. It always comes down to who. Dennis, as we close, what's one final word of encouragement that you would offer the discouraged, disappointed, deflated listener out there today about, like Reagan, how they can, in a sense, build a life of resilience on the rock, so that way they can find themselves battling out of any storm that may come their way?
Have faith, persevere. We are not a nation in decline, really. We can only see ourselves. We only see ourselves in this one place as it is now. I think it's gonna be forever. But I gotta tell you, God's in control of all this, and we need to just kind of let go and let Him do His work. And in the meantime, love one another, and to walk in peace. And enjoy this life. It's a gift.
That's right. It is a gift. Persevere, and above all, choose love. Again, be sure to check out the brand new movie Reagan, releasing nationwide in theaters this Friday, August 30th. And be sure to look for our friend and today's guest, who will be starring as the lead role of Ronald Reagan in that film, Mr. Dennis Quaid. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you.